98.9, Centre 97.3, Est-Ouest 91.7, RM1, la radio nationale.
RM1, 9 o'clock. Presented by Eris Stewart. Good morning, Eris.
Good morning, Sophie.
The headlines.
Drug crisis sees NADC under fire as disturbing videos spark public outrage. No Nipah virus cases detected in Mauritius, says Ministry of Health. AGOA extended until 2026 as Mauritius seeks long-term trade security. Pharmacies warned as medicine price reductions face enforcement issues. House Bank's project to provide rapid housing in emergency situations. In world news, dozens killed in deadly attacks on villages in western Nigeria. And in sports news, Manchester City to face Arsenal in EFL Cup final at Wembley. The recent circulation of videos showing young people in distress after consuming hard drugs and synthetic substances commonly known as CIMIC has prompted an official reaction from the National Agency for Drug Control. The agency referred to medical emergencies and urged the public to contact emergency services while warning against the sharing of such images. However, this response has failed to ease concerns. Shortly after, MP Eshanjuman publicly criticized the NADC, stating that the situation remains out of control despite the agency's announcements. In light of the visible escalation of the crisis, we sought to understand what is really happening within the body tasked with combating drug abuse. A report by Santana Ponceneau, read by Anjali Siratan Pulchan.
Adopted in May 2025 as an emergency response to the escalating drug crisis, the NADEC Act was meant to mark a historic turning point for Mauritius. Yet, less than a year later, the National Agency for Drug Control is already facing internal tensions, accusations of inaction, and an uncomfortable question: where are the results as the situation on the ground continues to worsen? The law paved the way for the official establishment of the NADEC in June 2025 with the appointment of Faisal Suleiman as CEO, followed by the agency's first board meeting in July. Since then, according to multiple consistent sources, the internal climate has deteriorated sharply. The agency is reportedly split between those calling for urgent action against the rise of hard and synthetic drugs and the leadership accused of delays and institutional blockages. This internal rift fuels a broader concern. What tangible impact has the NADEC had since its creation at a time when cases of severe addiction, distress, and overdoses continue to rise nationwide? Following the removal of Sam Lawton, widely seen by several stakeholders as an obstacle to reform, pressure has now shifted to the current governance. Some board members acknowledge improved dialogue since the arrival of Kunal Naik, a psychologist and addiction specialist. However, his part-time involvement is said to limit his decision-making influence, while several field-based recommendations reportedly remain unimplemented. Questioned on the matter, the NADEC's CEO maintains that the agency is working closely with the Ministry of Health, civil society, NGOs, and other stakeholders. He stresses that the NADEC cannot act alone and is, for now, prioritizing awareness campaigns while awaiting structural interventions from other institutions. Faisal Suleiman also concedes that meaningful change will take time, a response that has struggled to convince those on the ground where the drug crisis, particularly involving synthetic substances, continues to intensify with no visible signs of improvement.
The Ministry of Health has confirmed that to date no cases of the Nipah virus have been detected in Mauritius, Rodrigues, Agalega or St. Brandon. Following confirmed cases in West Bengal, India, Mauritian health authorities are closely monitoring the situation in collaboration with the World Health Organization, which considers the risk of international spread to be low. Enhanced screening measures are being applied to passengers arriving from the affected region. The hotline number 8924 remains operational 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for any information. The United States government has approved the extension of the African Growth and Opportunity Act until 31 December 2026, with retroactive effect from 30 September 2025. While the renewal has been welcomed with relief, Mauritian authorities and concerned operators are calling for a longer extension to secure the future of local exports. A significant step has already been taken as the White House has confirmed that discussions will be held to explore the possibility of a specific trade agreement between Mauritius and the United States. More details in this report voiced over by Shrina Apadu.
At La Brasserie Curpip, Wensum Limited is a textile manufacturing company specializing in the production of bespoke and ready-to-wear luxury suits and clothing. It supplies renowned international brands such as Richard James, Harrods and Hackett. The company, which employs some 400 people, exports its high-quality products worldwide. 20% of its exports are destined for the United States. A beneficiary of AGOA, Wensum Limited welcomes the renewal of this trade agreement for 1 year. However, a longer extension would have been preferable. Avinash Gaberdin, Managing Director, Wensum Limited, stated that a 1-year renewal is a very short term, as the factory needs a visibility at short, medium and long term. They will have to explore for maybe 1 season, but it will be difficult for buyers to map out a strategy for 1 year for a country. He spoke of advancing towards a bilateral agreement or a new vision of AGOA for the 21st century. MEXA, which comprises some 125 members, welcomes this extension, retroactive to September 30th, 2025. Leela Tiram Janjasuri, director of MEXA, said that all exports made since the expiry date of AGOA, or the 30th of September 2025, until the coming into force of the new agreement, will be reimbursable. The US authorities will reimburse customs duties on all the exports made during that period. She emphasized that it's high time to push towards a bilateral trade agreement between Mauritius and the US. According to Minister Adil Amir Mia, the decision to extend AGOA by just 1 year offers short-term visibility to economic operators. This extension, he said, should be used as a strategic window to secure the future of Mauritian exports. This view was shared by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. The process is progressing well. The White House, he said, has confirmed that discussions will take place with regards to a bilateral trade agreement between Mauritius and the United States. Meanwhile, Mauritius is pursuing its market diversification strategy to secure the future of its exports.
Since 1st February, medicines for patients suffering from hypertension, cardiovascular diseases and diabetes have been reduced by 50 rupees per box. The measure aims to ease the financial burden on chronic patients and the elderly. However, on the ground, some pharmacies are still applying the old prices. For the Minister of Commerce, Michael Sikyan, the situation is unacceptable. Inspectors have been deployed to ensure that the new prices are being enforced. And finally, in other news, fires, extreme weather, domestic violence, when emergencies strike, rehousing affected families quickly remains a major challenge. The Ministry of Housing and Lands is preparing a house banks project, a reserve of temporary housing units that can be rapidly deployed to provide shelter to families in distress. More with Shrina Apadu.
When emergencies strike, whether it's a fire, severe weather or domestic violence, finding immediate shelter remains a major challenge for the authorities. It is from this observation that the Ministry of Housing and Lands House Banks project was born. This project is a reserve of emergency housing quickly mobilized to temporarily house people in distress. The objective is to allow, for example, the Ministry of Social Security or the Ministry of Gender Equality to rapidly provide shelter for a displaced family or victims of domestic violence. Currently, the project is still in its finalization stage. Some sites have already been identified. Once finalized, the budget will need to be secured, calls for tenders launched and suppliers selected. The ministry is focusing on structures that can be quickly installed and removed, such as container homes. These will be connected to the CWA and CEB power grids. The beneficiaries would be governed by a social contract outlining the terms of their accommodation. And once the immediate crisis has passed, solutions must be found, for example, renting if the person has an income, or social housing if the situation warrants it. The House Banks project is a separate initiative entirely independent of the NHDC. However, it complements the ministry's new range of services, notably the rent-to-own program, designed for families excluded from bank loans, where it will be possible to rent with the option to purchase the house later.
And it's 9:10. You're listening to RM1 where we move to international news. Dozens of people have been killed in a violent shooting attack on 2 villages in Nigeria's western state of Kwara, according to authorities and human rights groups. Attackers also set fire to shops, homes, and the residence of the traditional leader, forcing residents of Nuku and Woro to flee. Officials have blamed extremist groups for the attack and have deployed an army battalion to the area. Tuesday's attack, one of several reported across Nigeria in recent days, comes as the country's defense minister confirmed to the BBC that a small team of US troops is in the country to assist with intelligence and training. And finally, in sports, in English football, Manchester City have qualified for the EFL Cup final after defeating Newcastle, the defending champions, 5-1 on aggregate. After a 2-0 victory in the first leg, the Sky Blues confirmed their place with a 3-1 home win. Omar Marmoush scored twice before a third goal by Tijani Regindes. Newcastle pulled one back in the second half through Anthony Elanga. Pep Guardiola leads City to an 11th final in 10 seasons. The Citizens will face Arsenal on the 22nd of March at Wembley Stadium in a highly anticipated Premier League showdown. And that's all from me this morning. Thanks so much for listening. Stay tuned now to the Intermediate with